Get over it already. My mother-in-law said those 4 words to me 47 times over 6 years, and I have every single one written down: the date, what she was covering up, and who else was in the room. In front of 40 guests at her 60th birthday dinner, I read that list out loud. By the time I finished, she wasn't looking at me anymore. She was looking at her own son. My name is Renee. I'm 32, I do the books part-time for my husband's family restaurant, and for most of my marriage I was the quiet one, the daughter-in-law who didn't make scenes. I want to tell you what quiet actually costs, and what it earns you if you use it right. I married Mark 6 years ago. His mother, Diane, ran the front of house at Corrado's, the Italian place her late husband opened in 1991. Diane had a way of ending conversations before they became inconvenient. 4 words. Get over it already. She said it the way other people clear their throat. The first time was our wedding reception, in that same banquet room. My grandmother's ring, not my engagement ring, a small gold band she'd given me the week before she died, went missing off the gift table. Diane had been alone near that table for 20 minutes while the staff reset for dinner. When I mentioned it, panicked, she patted my hand. Get over it already, sweetheart. It's just jewelry. I let it go. I told myself grief makes people careless with other people's things. I didn't know yet that I'd just witnessed her method for the first time. I wrote it down anyway, more to process the hurt than out of any suspicion. Entry 1. Over the next 2 years, I heard it after my miscarriage, when I mentioned wanting to go back to my old job, when I asked for one weekend without a family obligation. Each time, 4 words, and the subject changed. I started keeping the list on my phone, not as a plan, just as a way of proving to myself I wasn't imagining the pattern. By entry 15, I understood what the phrase was actually for. It wasn't dismissiveness. It was a door closing on purpose. Then it started showing up somewhere more expensive than my feelings. I'd taken over reconciling Corrado's books 2 years in, mostly because nobody else wanted to. Numbers didn't add up some months, vendor payments that didn't match invoices, cash deposits that ran short. The first time, I flagged a produce vendor whose monthly invoice had jumped by $600 with no explanation. I brought it up gently at Sunday dinner, spreadsheet open on my laptop. Diane glanced at it for maybe 2 seconds. Get over it already, it's probably just a price increase somewhere. By the following week, I noticed I'd been quietly moved off that vendor's account entirely, reassigned to payroll instead, no explanation given. It happened again with a linen service, then a liquor distributor. 3 different vendors, 3 different excuses, and every single time, the conversation ended the same way before I could finish asking the question I actually wanted answered: why does the paperwork not match the deposits? Entry 31 was the one that scared me. I found a business loan in the restaurant's file cabinet, $40,000, co-signed. Mark's signature was on it. Mark had never signed it. I know his signature, I'd watched him sign our mortgage a year before, and this wasn't it. It was close, but the R curled the wrong way. When I brought it to Diane, hands shaking, she barely glanced at the paper. Get over it already. Someone's birthday video was rolling that night, propped on the counter to catch the candles. It caught her instead. That was the entry I couldn't file away and move past. A forged loan isn't a feeling I can decide to let go of. It's a debt with my husband's name on it that he never agreed to carry. I brought it to Mark alone, the video queued up next to the actual loan documents. For 6 years he'd told me his mother was just blunt, just old-fashioned, just set in her ways. I watched him go quiet in a different way this time. He didn't defend her. He asked me how long I'd known things weren't right. I told him the truth, a long time, but I didn't have anything solid until now. He asked to see the rest of the list. That's when the last piece fell into place. The vendor Diane kept protecting, the one whose invoices never quite matched, wasn't a vendor. It was a woman named Carla, listed on paper as a consulting contractor, paid steadily out of the restaurant's account for 4 years. Mark had heard rumors about his father's business partner for years and always assumed it was old gossip about his late father. It wasn't his father. Diane had been quietly funding her own silent arrangement with money bled out of the restaurant, and every time I got close to the account that paid Carla, for words shut the conversation down. Entry 47, the same week as her birthday dinner, was the bank statement that finally connected all of it: Carla's payments, the forged loan covering the shortfall, and my grandmother's ring, which I found listed on an old safety deposit box inventory Mark's late father had kept, appraised, and logged the same month it disappeared from our wedding. I didn't confront her before the party. I let her have her birthday the way she was used to having things, on her terms, in her restaurant, surrounded by people who thought they knew her. 40 guests came. Same banquet room as the wedding. Diane in navy, holding court, telling the table how blunt honesty was the secret to a long marriage. When it came time for toasts, Mark stood up first, which surprised her. He said he wanted to play something before the cake came out, a clip from her birthday video shoot 2 months earlier, the one that had been rolling when she dismissed the forged loan. Her own voice filled the room. Get over it already. 40 faces turned toward her, confused, then curious. I stood next. I didn't raise my voice. I read the list. 47 entries, dates and reasons, out loud, in order: the ring, the miscarriage, the vendor accounts, the forged loan, and finally Carla's name, tied to 4 years of payments that didn't belong on those books. The room went the kind of quiet where you can hear silverware settle. Diane's face didn't crumble the way I expected. It went very still, the way people look when they're doing math they don't want to finish. I set my grandmother's ring on the table between us. Mark had gotten a court order for the safety deposit box records 3 days earlier, once forgery was on the table as a real accusation and not just a suspicion. I didn't say anything else. I didn't need to. Diane looked at her son, and for the first time in 6 years, he didn't look away first. In the weeks after, Mark told his mother the restaurant partnership with Carla was finished, and that the co-owners, his father's old friends, still on the deed, would be seeing the full accounting. Diane didn't get a scene, and she didn't get an apology owed to her either. She called the restaurant twice that first week asking Mark to reconsider, softer both times, and both times he told her the same thing: the books would speak for themselves from now on. She stopped calling after that. I heard she still comes in some Sundays, sits at the counter instead of the family table, and doesn't touch the register. Nobody asked her to. It just happened, the way consequences do when nobody's covering for you anymore. I didn't gloat. I closed the Notes app on my phone and didn't open that list again. Here's what I learned, keeping that list for 6 years without knowing what it would become: some people tell you to get over something because they need you to stop counting. I never stopped. I just waited until the number would finally count for something. If somebody in your life has a phrase they reach for every time you get close to the truth, I want you to hear this: write it down. Not for revenge. Just so that one day, if you ever need it, you'll have the receipts and not just the feeling. If this story reached you, hit record on your own list in the comments. I read every one.